faith, adventure, stories untold. First responder hearts brave and bold. Beyond the quest, where the journeys meet, from the fires of life to the gaming heat. Slim Chomp's crew, come join the ride, with McMedic, Napkins, and Taco as your guide. Beyond the quest, where the journeys meet, from the fires of life to the gaming heat. Slim Chomp's crew, come join the ride, with McMedic, Napkins, and Taco as your guide. Beyond the quest, where the stories grow, faith, fire, and games in the world we know. Adventure calls, the table is set, let's take the leap, our best quest yet. From the first light to the game's last stand, we're chasing truth with controller in hand. Faith, adventure, stories untold. First responder hearts brave and bold. Beyond the quest, where the journeys meet, from the fires of life to the gaming heat. Slim Chomp's crew, come join the ride, with McMedic, Napkins, and Taco as your guide. Beyond the quest, where the journeys meet, from the fires of life to the gaming heat. Slim Chomp's crew, come join the ride, with McMedic, Napkins, and Taco as your guide. Beyond the quest, where the stories grow, faith, fire, and games in the world we know. Adventure calls, the table is set, let's take the leap, our best quest yet. From the first light to the game's last stand, we're chasing truth with controller in hand. Faith, adventure, stories untold. First responder hearts brave and bold. Beyond the quest, where the journeys meet, from the fires of life to the gaming heat. Slim Chomp's crew, come join the ride, with McMedic, Napkins, and Taco as your guide. Beyond the quest, where the journeys meet, from the fires of life to the gaming heat. Slim Chomp's crew, come join the ride, with McMedic, Napkins, and Taco as your guide. Beyond the quest, where the stories grow, faith, fire, and games in the world we know. Adventure calls, the table is set, let's take the leap, our best quest yet. From the first light to the game's last stand, we're chasing truth with controller in hand. Faith, adventure, stories untold. First responder hearts brave and bold. Beyond the quest, where the journeys meet, from the fires of life to the gaming heat. Slim Chomp's crew, come join the ride, with McMedic, Napkins, and Taco as your guide. Beyond the quest, where the journeys meet, from the fires of life to the gaming heat. Slim Chomp's crew, come join the ride, with McMedic, Napkins, and Taco as your guide. Beyond the quest, where the stories grow, faith, fire, and games in the world we know. Adventure calls, the table is set, let's take the leap, our best quest yet. From the first light to the game's last stand, we're chasing truth with controller in hand. Faith, adventure, stories untold. First responder hearts brave and bold. Beyond the quest, where the journeys meet, from the fires of life to the gaming heat. Slim Chomp's crew, come join the ride, with McMedic, Napkins, and Taco as your guide. Beyond the quest, where the journeys meet, from the fires of life to the gaming heat. Slim Chomp's crew, come join the ride, with McMedic, Napkins, and Taco as your guide.
Beyond the Quest may not be suitable for all listeners. You're going to hear real raw footage of real life first responders discussing anything and everything. You may hear from preachers, teachers, EMS personnel, 911 dispatchers, and more. Nothing is off the table, and as I stated previously, nothing is edited out. Please bear with us in these early episodes. I promise it will get better with time as we're just starting this journey. Jokes may be made that some find offensive. These views and opinions are that of each individual person and not of the group Slim Chance Gaming or any of our sponsors. If you're easily offended, this may not be the show for you. Or then again, it very well could be. With all that out of the way, let's get started.
Good morning. I'm a slacker. You got me, Medic. You got Taco. You got the Napkins.
Morning.
And this morning we got Schizo.
Good morning, everybody.
I'm totally a slacker this morning. Totally my fault. But anyway. Yeah, they're all happy you're here, Schizo.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, my brain is about like pudding, but I am here.
Well, I'll have you know, I love pudding.
Well, you can't eat my brain because that would be cannibalism.
That's true. It's frowned upon.
It's frowned upon in many societies.
How is
But I don't think
everybody?
it's actually expressly illegal here in the United States.
So you're saying I have a chance?
I'm not sure.
I mean,
I think so, but
I
I'll
thought
double check.
I thought this was America. I thought this was America.
Oh. Huh, holy moly. Anyway, how is everybody this morning?
I'm alright.
I know you're going to say tired. I know you're going to say whatnot.
Well,
They're like, read the
our-
questions, kind of excited this morning.
So actually, it turns out that in the United States, there are no laws that directly prohibit it, but there are laws that make it indirectly impossible
I'm just gonna
to legally
point
obtain
out-
it.
We get Schizo
hold you.
online with us in less than 5 minutes, and we're already talking about cannibalism.
Yeah, we're a minute and 42 seconds into this, and
Somebody's got to
got
bring up the hard questions, okay?
We did receive some questions I'm excited for. I love the fact that we got people sending stuff in. I think that's great. I think that's really cool. That's what this podcast is for. So I am excited for
Even
those.
if it does seem like that we're playing relationship therapist. But it's okay.
Hey,
Uh,
somebody's got
would
to
you
keep
all
this
be-
generation in line.
Would you all be opposed to going to these questions in the reverse order of how we got them?
I don't
Like
even
the
know how
newest
we
first?
got them. Because I don't know
we-
if there's
we
more that
can.
Napkins can see.
Well, I figure the first one will probably end up being the one we spend the longest talking about, just because of the topic at hand with it.
I also
So I thought it might be better to tackle the others first, since the most recent one is kind of something we touched on before.
Yes. I also think that this is something me and Schizo was talking about in the pre-show. That I think that with that first question we received, we should break it apart a little bit. Because I feel like it's kind of touching on two separate issues.
Yeah, we can
That's
break
my
it
own
down a
personal.
little.
It's my own
I'm okay with that.
honest opinion.
I just didn't know if there's more that you can see on your end that we can't.
No. Thanks to our wonderful Chad over at Angry Vet
Chad,
Nation,
the hero.
we we all get the responses now. So whatever comes in goes directly to our emails.
Ooh, I like that. See, Chad's on the ball.
That also gives us time to think about them if they're really good questions that need more in-depth thought.
Hey, I'm just gonna say, yeah,
Chad, you're doing good, Chad.
you're doing
We
good,
appreciate
Chad.
it.
Keep your head up, bub.
I'm not gonna lie. I thought Chad, you were talking about like the internet meme. I was like, thanks to Chad, and I was like, the internet meme.
No, Chad
I was
is
like-
Angry Vet Nation's IT guy that they have a love-hate relationship with.
Oh yeah, cool. I completely understand that relationship because IT people hate me, and I cause a lot of problems at ambulance services with IT people. I'm an IT nightmare through and through.
You're an HR nightmare, sir.
Yeah,
A
you have
walking
no
HR
idea.
violation.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go ahead and dive into these
Q&A
questions. I think.
time! Yay!
So this first one comes. Well, technically, it's the last one, but we're going in reverse order.
We go in
So this
whatever
first
order
one,
we want, sir.
this first one was received at about 3 o'clock this morning from a gentleman named Tommy. He
Oh.
said, "Do you guys ever wish that you could go back and relive your past? I'm talking like redo things from your past, or just be in that moment again. Do you ever wish that you could change your past? How do you move on from a traumatic relationship to something healthy?"
Can I
And
answer
he
this
listens
question?
from YouTube.
Can I answer this question real quick?
Yeah,
We'll
go
start
ahead.
with
You
you,
can go first.
Schizo.
Okay. No. No. No.
You want to elaborate there?
Nothing to elaborate on. The answer is no. I have absolutely no desire to go back to anything in my past. Okay, because I have a dating habit that is primarily focused around hoochies.
And
So,
unavailable women.
and yes, and it's not because I actively search them out.
You're just
It's
a magnet,
because
bro.
I am okay. Married women and hussies love me.
Bro, you're killing the viewers, man. Oh, my wife's here, and she says he ain't lying. Oh.
So I guess I can go second on this question. So from someone that just got out of an 8-year toxic, traumatic relationship, I'm gonna say no as well. I'm gonna say, if you're talking specifically relationship, no, absolutely not. Never want to go back. Never want to relive anything from that relationship. Um, as far as moving on to something healthy, I feel like you just gotta trust the process. Take it one day at a time. Be cautious. Uh, if you're talking non-relationship, as far as things from my past, if there's anything I could think of, it would just be going back and spending one more day with my grandfather. Like that's the only thing from my past that I wish I could go back, spend more time with him.
I would
That was
say,
beautiful.
like, as far as like relationships and all that, as much as I wish I never had to deal with certain people, um, I probably wouldn't go back and change anything because they always say your past is what shapes you and makes you who you are. But um, as much as I hated high school and stuff, I think if going back, I would have tried harder in school, to not be as much of a ding dong as I am. But I agree with what Napkins said too. I wish I could go back and spend more time with my papa and things like that. But there's a lot of things that happen that there's moments in our lives where we always start to second guess or wish I didn't do this, wish I could have done this different. But at the same time, you have to roll with whatever choices you make and I think there's as cheesy and as cliche as it sounds of your past is what shapes you and makes you and everything. There's a lot of truth behind it.
Yeah, I agree about. I wish we could have more time with our papa and everything. He definitely played a big role in our lives growing up, and we all dearly love him. The three of us, in fact, all have tattoos honoring him because he meant so much to us. Uh, Outside of that, like Medic said, I do kind of wish that I could have redone things in high school to have applied myself more. I was lazy in high school. I didn't care. But outside of that, no, I really wouldn't want to go back and change anything or relive anything. As far as moving on from a traumatic relationship, I can relate to that as well. And you just kind of gotta put yourself out there to the moment of saying, all right, I'm done with this. It's ready to move on and let it go.
And as far as the moving on from a traumatic relationship, the best thing I can say about it is you just have to do it. I mean, there's no
You
other
know,
way around it. You have to step out there and do it.
I don't I don't know how many people are watching or whatnot, but I mean, I do because I'm looking at it. But I consider a traumatic relationship. I know a lot of y'all probably don't know me who are watching, but I am a born again Christian, and I consider a traumatic relationship to be one of the reasons that I actually ended up coming to Christ. You know, so
And it depends on what a lot of people label a traumatic relationship to. I mean, everybody's
well,
got different views on it too. I mean,
like Medic, you already know.
I was manipulated and controlled a lot, and I mean, to me,
Preach.
that was traumatic relationship. I mean, it was a mess. It was a living hell, and do I wish I could go back and wish I never done it? I wish I could say that I could and that I wanted to, but then I wouldn't have my children. My life wouldn't have played out the way it has to where I've met my wife now.
I can't say that
Yeah, you
you know
can't.
a traumatic relationship is the only reason that I became a Christian. Uh, you know, I have some issues in my family right now. My mom is sick, and those played some parts in it. But you know, if this was with a relationship with a woman that I was not even dating, McMedic can tell you all about it.
That's true. That's
She
true.
absolutely ruined my life in what, a year?
It was about a year, something like that.
Yeah.
So, speaking of traumatic relationships, I feel like that is the perfect segue to question number 2.
In case you have not read any comments, next question. We know her personally. She sugarcoated her question a lot. Her boyfriend, baby daddy, is a real POS. Don't hold back, Amy. Okay.
Okay,
Noted.
so with that said, this question comes from Courtney in New York,
What up, Courtney?
and it says, and she listens on Spotify. She said, I need a guy's perspective. My boyfriend plays games constantly, which I normally don't have a problem with. However, it's to the point that he's ignoring me and other tasks around the house. He doesn't really spend time with the kids. I'll ask him for help, and most of the time it never gets done. I was literally vomiting one day, and he wouldn't get off the game because he was in an active match. After the match, he came in the room, said, You good, then went right back to the game. I've tried to address it multiple times, but he says I'm overreacting. I want you guys to address this on the show, and maybe a way I can talk to him about it, and I'll probably play it for him. Love from New York.
Divorce him and get with me, sis. You feel me?
We just talked about this.
Ah. Who invited Schizo? So I'm not gonna lie. When I received this question, I kind of looked at my wife. I was like, "You didn't like submit a question under the name Courtney, did you?"
The funny thing is, we actually asked the girl we work with. What was it today? This when we came in
Yeah,
Sunday night,
this Sunday night.
because her name is
Whose
Courtney,
name
and
is Courtney?
and she actually talked about this exact question,
Really?
almost word for word.
Huh.
But obviously, she doesn't live in New York.
Well, I will say this about it. I'm guilty of it, of kind of the same thing too, and I think it's not just gaming that people can do it with. I think they can become kind of just like with gaming of wanting to be on the game, wanting to go to their comfort place and whatnot. Because a lot of gaming, that's what it is for me. It's kind of escaping of the stress and feeling overwhelmed and whatnot, and being able to just get on games and hang out with you guys and whatnot. I mean, that's like my second home. And there's a lot of times that I catch myself, being in here on the game whenever I could be, folding laundry or something. And it's not just gaming. I think people can do it with anything. They can do it, well, I want to watch this show instead of get up and do something. I want to play this game. I want to talk on the phone and or anything. But I will say I try and balance mine. Most time, whenever the kids are here, if they're on their games and playing, then and and my wife's in there watching TV or something, then I'll come in here and play. Now, if she messages me and she's like, "Hey, can you do this real quick or whatever?" Then yeah, I'll get up and go do it. If I'm in a match or something, I mean, she'll ask. She'll be like, "Are you in a game right now?" Yeah, why? Well, I was gonna see if you could do this, and it's like, and I'll say, "Yeah, I'll try and come do it." Now, if she was like actively vomiting, and I knew that, and I was in a
You
game,
good, bro? You good, bro?
I should be like, "Hey, can you close the door? I can't hear the boys." No. I would. I mean, there's no question about it. I would go to her, make sure everything's okay, and try and help her and whatnot. And then I'd walk back in here and be like, "Guys, I'm sorry. I gotta go take care of the wife and stuff." I mean, there's a fine line between wanting the game, especially something kind of like how we're trying to help grow our channels and our community, but you still have to remember, you have obligations as a boyfriend, in this case, but as a dad of you have to fulfill, and if you're not going to fulfill them, there's no point in you being there, in my opinion. If you're not going to be there and be a dad, then you know you're kind of missing the big picture of why you even have a child in the first place. If you're going to put a game before trying to help take care of your girlfriend who's sitting here vomiting and whatnot, and you have to remember your main obligations in a household, in my opinion anyway, as a dad, as being the man of the household, that you have to fulfill, and that's being there and helping take care. And when it comes to house chores and everything, it's not just the woman's job to do. I mean, it's a team effort. Me and my wife, like when she's at work, I try and help take care of the house. When she's here, if I'm on the game, I mean, most times she'll be like, if you have anything you have to do today, you have to go stream, any recordings you need to go do. I mean, she's extremely supportive, which is a complete opposite world from past toxic relationships. I mean, my wife is my biggest supporter in what I'm trying to do, even with this podcast. But if there's something that she's wanting done around the house, that's my first priority before I ever turn the computer on.
Can you keep the dry heaving down to a minimum, please?
Don't forget to clean up your mess.
Napkins, since you also have kids, you want to go ahead and answer before me and Schizo put our 2 cents in, since we don't.
I got kids.
Dogs don't count.
Dogs do count. Okay.
Can you claim them on taxes?
I wish.
I could. They just might not like it.
So without the vomiting aspect added in, I'm gonna say I could understand where McMedic was coming from as far as getting wrapped up in something and putting other stuff off because you're so wrapped up. I mean, we're all guilty of it. Let's be honest.
Right.
But if you truly are with a partner that you love and care about, then they should come first always.
Right.
So if it's something that they're vomiting or whatever, it shouldn't matter that you're in the middle of a game.
But
hey
bro,
guys, I got
on
AFK
Call of
for a
Duty. The
minute.
boys is playing.
Hey guys, got AFK for a minute, and then go check on her. And then if she's okay and she's like, go finish your match or whatever, finish that match, then get off. I get that, but from the sounds of the question, there was not even a pause of anything
Right.
until after the match was over, which is not okay. Let's see. Let me go back to the question.
And I will
here.
say
Also,
this real quick. And it's
His
not
name's
because
Kyle, isn't it?
And it's not because, in the chat, they're saying, don't hold back or anything. This is just my honest opinion. Like, from the way things sound to me, at some
He's
point
checked
you
out.
have to mature and grow up.
Mm-hmm. So she also says that he doesn't really spend time with the kids. Now, I'm going to assume she means never. But and not just a decreased amount. But if he's never spending time with the kids, he's never spending time with you, all he's doing is getting on the video game, all he worries about is his boys, quote unquote. In my opinion, he's checked out. He cares more about the game and more about what he's doing in his personal time than he does about the relationship or the kids.
Right. That's what it sounds like. So if that's the case, and you're saying it sounds like he's checked out, what's your advice?
My advice is to
Because
honestly sit.
there's one part of the question I haven't touched on yet.
I say you sit down and you have an honest heart to heart, and if he can't handle that, if he's not man enough and mature enough to handle that, then you've got your answer. Kick him to the curb. Find somebody that.
See, that's kind of the part I hadn't answered on. You know, she said every time she addresses it, she's overreacting and whatnot, and it's really easy, especially whenever you're in a relationship, of when you're going to sit down and talk and whatnot, to assume you're overreacting, or everything. That's right, everything's my fault all the time, because I've been there and I've done that. But
I never said that.
my thing is, if you are in a relationship, and it doesn't matter if you are two adults and you can't sit down and have a conversation as adults, and it's always a fight and an argument because you can't be an adult and have a conversation, then one's grown up and one ain't. Kick the other one out until he can learn how to grow up as an adult and have a conversation. Let him figure out everything else on his own. See if he's still putting that game ahead whenever he has to try and do everything else on his own.
Good. So, any thoughts?
So, I obviously, they've already mentioned I don't have kids, but I mentioned earlier that I am a born again Christian. That's the biggest thing in the world to me. Okay, and when you talk about he spends all day playing his games and whatnot, and he's not focused on you, or he's not focused on the kids. I spend a lot of time gaming. I do. I own my own house. It's not a nice house, but I own it. I don't really do a whole lot outside of going to work, going to church. If one of the guys calls me and needs my help, then if I can get to them, I will try my best to get to them. It hasn't happened here recently, just because I'm broke all the time now. But
I have a question for you. I'm going to interrupt just for a second.
Yeah.
Just for a second, because I just want to put this thought in your brain. You live with, or well, rather, your mom lives with you. So if you were on a game in the middle of a match and you heard your mom throwing up in the other room, would you not step away to go check on her?
Absolutely. I checked on her just a little while ago. She's had a cough for 2 weeks now, and as if you're watching, any of us, I'm an EMT, so I went and listened to my mom's lungs. I took my stethoscope and I listened to her to make sure that I didn't hear anything, pneumonia related or anything like that. Everything sounded clear, but I did. I went and checked on my mom.
So now I'm gonna throw a thought in your head. So you're playing your game, and the grass needs cut around the house, and it's getting bad. Would you go take care of stuff around the house before you were on the game?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no.
I mean, somebody's got to ask the hard questions.
I mean, when it comes to weed eating, bro, I'd rather have my legs cut off. Okay.
Gotcha.
But I find myself a lot of the times getting involved in my game, and so I do genuinely try to read my Bible every day. Okay, it is something that I strive to do, and sometimes I'll admit to you, this entire past week I have not opened my Bible one time, and sometimes gaming gets in the way of that. I choose the playing over spending time with somebody that I say I truly love.
Right.
And, just like he says he loves you and he loves his kids, but he's not willing to put forth that effort. When I came home from work today, and on my way home, I was like, I need to back off of gaming just a little bit and make sure that my first priority when I wake up in the morning is opening my Bible, reading.
Right.
It's the same thing with your significant other. If there are things to be done, those things need to be done first.
Right.
Unless it's weed eating. Okay.
Unless it's weed eating.
Unless it's
Well,
weed
that's
eating.
like even with what we're trying to do of growing a channel and in a community and everything, and with me not being able to work right now, and thinking, well, this is the only way that I have to do anything right now. At the same time, this is not my main priority. You know what I mean? Like, my wife comes first, then my kids, then this. See what I'm saying? Like in my household, this is never gonna come before anything I have to do as a husband or as a father.
Yeah, so I don't have kids, but I have been married, and I do try and do as much as I can for all of our extended family members and everything. So the biggest thing to me, it sounds like, is either he's prioritized the game above all of his other responsibilities, or he needs to learn how to balance things better. Like, yes, if you're sick, he needs to get off the games and focus on you and try and help you out. He needs to learn how to spend time with the kids before he focuses on his games and
Right.
stuff.
And it's easier for me
When
to
I
say that because my kids are, I don't know what age the kids are. I mean, my kids are at the age of, I'm going to go play Fortnite or Ark. Have you touched on my question
Super
yet?
Mario Cousin. I'm not sure. We may have. We
They
only
dropped a
have the
follow. Thank you for the
names,
follow.
so
We've only
Do
hit
you want
one
to
question.
drop your name
I don't know
so
which
we know who
question was
you are?
yours. Do-do-do-do. Gage.
Not yet, brother. Yours is coming.
Yours is coming.
Oh, he's the juicy one.
yeah, we saved yours for last, so you made it just in time. But
Yeah.
back to this, like, yeah, I enjoy playing games. I'm a single guy with my own place. I only have cats to take care of. I don't have to dive too deep into uh any of that kind of stuff or anything when I'm here, especially, during winter months when there's less outside work or anything. I feel like I can spend a lot of time on my games, but I choose to focus on, like, our mama. She needs help getting to and from doctor's appointments, so I try and take her to those when I'm off work. I try and go by and see her once a week and check on her. I try to make sure I go up and see our mom and our dad once a week and check on them, especially since he had the LVAD placed. If Napkins is working and they've got his kids babysitting, I try to go and help with them for a little bit just to give them a slight break. If there's time and there's not too much going on, I try and go by and see Medic and his wife and their kids and check on them. So you got to figure out what's important to you and make that your focus. If games are what's important to you, maybe you shouldn't have kids. Maybe you shouldn't have a family because you're just going to
Woo!
focus on the games and ignore your other responsibilities.
Hey man, you drop it like it's hot. My wife has put some input on this. She says communication and being able to communicate with your significant other is very important. There's been times when I've gotten aggravated because Medic's in there playing a game and I'm getting overwhelmed with cleaning, dinner, etc., whatever I'm doing at the time. Then I take a minute and realize, well, he can't read my mind. He doesn't know that I need help. But I walk my butt in the room, or I text him and tell him what I need help with. Do I expect him to jump up and do it right? Do it right then? No. But he will come through and help me with whatever I need. He does all the things needed for our kids while I'm working. He cooks, cleans, runs the roads, takes the kids to extracurriculars. He does anything and everything he can to help with the burden of stress off me, but it does go both ways.
Well
Yes, you may
said.
ask a question. You can always ask a question.
We never tell Amy no.
We know better.
I'm responding to you, Vet, by the way.
I do anything I can for him to ease his day. A relationship, especially with kiddos, is not one-sided. You have to work together as a team. If you can't communicate without fighting, that's a whole other problem. Well said, wife. Does it bother you guys or make you nervous knowing someone who submitted a question you're about to talk to is watching?
Absolutely not. Welcome to the Coliseum, baby.
No, I kind
With
of
that said,
Well, I like
I
that if they're
found it
watching.
exciting, to be honest.
I like if
Yeah,
they're
I
watching.
like.
They can help, explain their side or their input or their, you know what I mean? Like if we're on the complete opposite side of what they're looking for, that's their chance of trying to kind of debate back and explain where they're coming from.
Yeah,
I
clarify
will
a
say
little bit
that
or something.
I'll also remind everyone we have a disclaimer for a reason. You might not like our response, but you asked for it. So
Hey, we're just pathetic,
And
man.
we say
we
we
spread
say all the
hate.
time that we do welcome discussion. We're not opposed to discussion of any alternate points of views whatsoever, as long as you're willing to come in with the mindset of, hey, I just want to explain my point of view. This is why I feel this way, or this is why I believe this, and not just come in and you all are stupid. You're wrong,
Right.
because then we're just going to mock
I
you.
think with this question, what it mainly comes down to me is one, there's a communication problem in the relationship, and if you've tried to communicate over and over and it's just, well, you're overreacting and nothing's changing, then you need to change the relationship. Period.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Before we get into this next question,
Move
I do
on
have.
down.
I have move on to Schizo. No.
Keep waiting.
Before we touch on this next question, I do have a question for the listener Gage. If he's still on here, I hope he is, because it is something that me and Schizo talked about in the pre-show. Do you care to tell us how old you are? That's going to help us, I feel like, with this question.
That's a good point. I do think that'll kind of clarify things a little bit.
I hate that this doesn't let me write more than 500 characters. Shaking my head. 25. sir.
25. Okay, cool.
Okay, cool. All right. Without further ado, question number 3. Our final question is from Gage, who happens to be listening right now. He listens from Apple Podcast as well as Twitch.
What up, Gage?
He says, as I mentioned earlier, Gage wasn't on here at that point. We're going to read the whole question, but I think it's going to be best if we kind of pick it apart. So, whole question, here we go. Can you guys break down the difference between faith and religion? What makes one different than the other? I am a Christian in my own opinion. I don't smoke, drink, I don't party, I don't worship Satan, but I also don't go to church every Sunday. I go maybe once a month. Now, my family is pressuring me, saying I'm not truly a Christian, but I'm, quote, playing the fence. I just don't see it. Just because I don't go to a building every week shouldn't matter, right? This all came up only because I started seeing a girl who isn't technically a, quote, Christian, quote. It's not that she isn't either. She just never has really been around church. My family says I should break it off before it gets serious because, quote, God won't like it, quote. Because she's not a, quote, hardcore Christian. Look forward to hearing from you. Love the show, Gage.
Thank you for being a listener. We appreciate that.
Deep question, too. I like it.
So,
Yes.
I did reach out to some people for their perspectives on this, too. I had a couple give some feedback, too, that we can throw in.
So first question that I'd like to ask, if it's all right, is in the very first part of it, you say, can you guys break down the difference between faith and religion? Are you meaning from a pantheon type of view, as are the words when somebody says they're of the Buddhist faith, or they're of the Muslim faith, or when somebody says they're of the Christian religion or the Muslim religion, are you meaning that differential in what you mean between faith and religion, or are you meaning what is faith and what is religion?
Do 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 do.
Because if
Also, a
you're talking,
good question there, Schizo, because whenever I saw the question, my first take on it was he was asking what is faith versus religion, like what makes them different.
yeah,
So clarification would be nice.
Just really, what is the difference between having faith and being religious? Um,
Okay,
well,
yeah.
well, one person I
so
reached out to, I can go ahead and give let blah, blah, their response, and then I'm going to let Schizo be the first one to dive in on this. Um, one person I reached out to, they said to me, religion is a set of customs or traditions. Um, I think that they're getting at religion versus relationship with Christ. Religion is often bound by legalistic mindsets, while a relationship is just between you and Him. As far as for the rest of the question, as far as the once a month thing of going to church, the word tells us not to forsake the assembling of ourselves together, and that is the fellowship between brethren in church, especially in those times, the times that we are currently living in. That they hope that this response helps explain some stuff. So I'm gonna let Schizo be the first one to dive into this. I didn't mean to cut you off there. I had
oh,
it pulled up. I
no, you're
wanted to go
fine.
ahead and get that one out.
Um, so the difference between having faith and being religious. Uh, have you ever heard of Wicca? It's kind of a new age religion where uh
I'm not easily
people
offended, by the way. Don't have to hold back. They said.
people tend to in Wicca they tend to
That might be a good
worship
thing.
the
It's
wind and the
typically,
moon.
yeah, witchcraft based, but nature witchcraft based.
Yes,
Right.
and that is somebody who claims to be a Wicca. They see that as religious. That's how I would look at it, at least. You know, they're religious in what they believe, but faith. Okay, this is the best way I know how to describe faith. Is I don't. You said you were 25. I don't know how your relationship is with your dad, or if your dad is still around. If not, I'm sorry. But when you were a kid, and maybe your dad had a truck or something, and you were standing on the tailgate, and you looked at your dad and said, "Dad, catch me." And you jumped off the tailgate, and you knew without a doubt your dad was going to catch you. That is faith. That is taking that jump, knowing no matter what, you are safe. Your dad is going to catch you. That's faith. Okay. Uh, I said it twice now. I'm a born again Christian, and faith to me is God saying, "I need you to take a leap right now," and me saying, "Cool, okay, let's do it." I jump knowing that Christ is there and He's going to catch me. That's faith. Even though I can't see Him, I may not be able to reach out and grab his robe, but I know He's going to catch me. That's faith.
So my thing. So I think this is the one we're breaking down, right?
Yes.
Okay. So the first part of it, of the difference between being religious and having faith and saying you're a Christian. Um, Religious to me, that's man-made. I think it's all man-made. I mean, anywhere
Agreed.
in the Bible, I mean, there's not even a definition of being a Christian in general. To me, being a Christian is striving to be Christ-like because you were born again because he died for you, and my thing, the difference in it is anybody can run around and say they're a Christian and then still go run around and sell crack on the street. It's the point of living what you're saying that you believe. Um, just because somebody says they're a Christian doesn't make them a Christian. And then I mean, you said in your question that you don't you don't cut, you don't drink, you don't smoke, you don't do all this, and I mean, there's a lot more deeper you can dive into it. People can say, drinking's a sin and stuff, but nowhere in the Bible does it say it's a sin to drink. It's a sin to be drunk. So a lot of people can dive into it and look at it deeper. But my biggest difference in them is if I say that I'm a Christian, but I'm not living it, as in I'm not shining a light. I'm not going to church whenever I have the opportunities to, and because once you miss one service and it becomes so much easier to miss another one, and then, well, I don't feel like going to this one, and then I'm gonna go, well, maybe I'll go to this one just so people don't say that I've quit going and stuff. You're not going for the right reason, and I think the biggest thing is that you haven't sold out. uh, I think in your question I think there was some comment about playing the fence, and I think, and just to be honest with you, from what it sounds like to me, not that I'm siding completely with your parents, but I think playing the fence is probably the perfect way to put where you're at right now.
I when I start to think a little bit of it, you say you're a Christian, and if so, brother, I'm so happy. First off, and I'll see you up there. Um, a lot of people think of religion, and they think of, oh, you go to church, cool, or you go to the synagogue on Saturdays, or you go to the mosque on Fridays. But being a Christian is not a religion, okay? And it may be cliche to say, but being a Christian is a relationship.
Yeah.
It is a relationship more than anything in the world.
The best way to I know how to explain what being a Christian is that is your relationship between you and God. That's your personal relationship, and he says in his word, and he refers to it all the time about how he's the groom, and we're the bride, and that is a relationship. And what do you want to do with a relationship? You want to grow that relationship. Like when I met my wife, I wanted to date my wife, and one other person I reached out to, this was kind of what they had some input on it, of they wanted to date their wife, they wanted to get to know them, they wanted that relationship to grow. And if you're not working on that relationship, it's not gonna grow. It's going to become stagnant.
So I'm going to assume from your message and everything that you were raised in a church-going household. So this is the best way I know to demonstrate the difference between faith and religion here.
Yes, that
Religion
works.
is what the Pharisees and Sadducees had.
Right.
They were
Yes.
dogmatic. They followed the law to a T,
Right.
to the point that they had bound themselves with even more rules that they created based on how they were interpreting other scriptures that they had. And when Christ came, the first thing he started doing was
Breaking.
tossing all of their
Yeah.
ideas
Breaking
out
every
the
one of
window.
them.
Like, you read about how even after he taught at the synagogue on the Sabbath, he and his followers immediately go out and start gathering food from the fields, even though according to the law that was forbidden. And you read about how uh, he walked into the temple in Jerusalem and found them with money changers in the temple, and became so angry he
He made a
not
whip.
only flips tables, he takes the time to make a whip, a cat o' nine tails whip specifically. So he stopped, braided leather to make a whip that had 9 ends on it, and then started beating them until they fled the temple. Like, he had God's righteous anger at that moment, don't get me wrong, but he
Right.
was breaking the man-made traditions.
Right.
And the term Christian literally means to be Christ-like, which means you're not following dogmatic rules. You're trying to get free of that, and you're trying to have a one-on-one walk with God.
Right.
yes, you're supposed to assemble with others and you're supposed to have a core belief that Christ was our Savior, died for our sins, and rose again. But it says seek out your own soul salvation because it's an individual walk. It's
Right.
not everyone goes through the same trials at the same
And
time.
everyone should do the same thing. And yeah,
Everyone has a different thing. Like Medic mentioned, it doesn't actually say that it's a sin to drink. It says not to be a drunkard or drink extremely strong drink.
but if you ask
That's
half the
completely different.
people around, what are they going to say?
Yeah, they're going to tell you it's a sin to drink.
Right.
But what I'm getting at is for some people, it very well could be. Maybe they
Yeah.
don't have self-control, or
Some
maybe
people
they,
feel extremely guilty over it.
yeah, maybe they have a problem with control, or maybe they don't have a good tolerance, so they can't drink. They have to avoid it.
Right.
Others, however, could probably have a drink and not feel a bit of guilt over it, not have a problem with it. That's what I mean when I say it's a personal walk. You have to actually invest time in reading the Word of God, praying to Him, and seeking what He wants you to do over what everyone else is telling you to do. That's the difference in faith and religion.
It's
You're
very common in, especially like, because so to give you kind of a background where we're coming from, well, for me, Napkins and Taco for sure, because I can say that 100%. Because I didn't get to know my other brother Schizo for several years later, but we were raised in church, straight up, and it was Sunday. You were going to church, and it was very, um, what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of um, like if you done something that they viewed was wrong. I mean, you were just looked at of well, you need to go hit the altar and blah blah.
Yeah, you were chastised for sure.
And so from coming from that background, especially to like now, because it's very common in those situations for people to want to push you to what they think and to push you into what they believe. Um, and to me, that's not how being a Christian works with your relationship with God anyway. Because like Taco said, it says seek out your own soul salvation. And just because somebody feels guilty for what they're doing doesn't mean that you have to feel guilty for what you're doing. Now, if what you're doing is something like blatantly obvious that you know you shouldn't be, then yeah, that's a different story. But before we dissect this a little further, I want to let Napkins kind of get some input on this part.
So this is going to be a little different because I get some hate for this, but this is just my own personal opinion.
No, you go for it.
I personally don't agree. I think now, as far as like the religion, the faith, all that stuff, I agree with what everybody else has said. But as far as I am a very, 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 very strong believer in your walk with God is your own personal walk. Nobody else knows your walk. Nobody else knows your heart but you and God.
Right.
And if you truly 100% believe that you are a born again Christian and you live the Christian lifestyle, so to speak, nobody can tell you you're not. Here is my caveat to that, though. Me personally, I have a drawing to go to church. I want to go to church. If you don't have that to want to go fellowship and want to go to church and hear the word and grow in strength and strengthen yourself as a Christian, maybe you got the wrong church, brother.
Well, that was one thing I was going to kind of touch on too, because this is the way I see things in church. Because different churches do different things however they want. Like you have teaching, you have preaching, and whatnot. And teaching is explaining to you what the scriptures are saying of how you kind of need to view and understand things, and then preaching is kind of so you can understand it and to help get you there. If you don't get anything out of when you're going to church, there's nothing wrong with finding a different church. I don't care if your family goes to that church or not. They can suck a big green hairy egg with a clabbered yolk, because your walk with God should be your main priority on over anything. Now, if my thing is when I go to church, don't get me wrong, I love to feel the spirit and I love to hear the worship music and all that, but I always want to hear the word because there's always something that comes out of it that I've been dealing with or that I've been going through that kind of sticks with me, that helps with me. So I want to go and I want to hear what word's going to be brought forth. Um, if you're not getting anything out of it when you go, I would highly encourage you to try and find a different one to go to that you really believe in. Um, with that being said, I mean, there's so many different daggone denominations and everything. As long as you find a church that backs what you believe, um, and you get something out of it, absolutely. If you have to find a different one, go to it.
Uh, I want to say this because I don't feel like I get to say it a whole lot to a lot of people. People are so concerned a lot of the times with so church, going to church on Sundays. I go to church. I didn't go this past 2 weeks. My mom was sick and quite frankly I was just exhausted. But I'm a just about an every Sunday, every Wednesday church going person. And uh people so often think that church that if you don't go to a building, designated building for church, that you're not going to church, and that's simply not true. Okay, I could take McMedic, Napkins, and Taco right now and say, hey, would you guys like to meet at McDonald's every Saturday and go over a couple of chapters and fellowship with each other? That's church.
Yeah, it's not the four
You know,
walls. I mean, it's not about the building. It's about surrounding yourself
other believers.
with other believers. That's what to me the whole verse of don't forsake the assembling, that's what that's referring to is don't forget because there's times when you feel weak that you need to check your surroundings on your friend circle because if I'm feeling too weak, I need to be able to rely on Schizo and Taco and Napkins to know that they're going to be strong whenever I'm weak. Whenever my faith is lacking, that they have faith to help me out.
Do I recommend finding a specific meeting house, this established church building? I do, and the reason I say that is because whether you go to a McMedic and Taco and Napkins, they go to a relatively small church. It's out in the country. You know, I go to a very large church. It's not like mega church big, but it is the primary Baptist church in the city. And there are a lot of people there. And like I said, whether you go to a small church or a big church, there's always other people there, and touching on what they were talking about, your walk with Christ. Uh, there are people in your church who are going to be they're going to be they've been Christians for 50 years now. And there's going to be people in your church who have been Christians for a week. But each one of them can offer you something. They have something that they have learned in their walk with Christ that they can teach you. So yeah, I do believe that going to, like I said, finding a church is important. But also at the same time, church is it's made for the fellowship. It's made for believers to be together in uh, charity, doctrine, and tradition, and faith and worship. But if you want to take 5 of your friends and get together on Saturday morning, get an egg McMuffin, you know, read the word,
I agree. Like
talk about.
you can be anywhere with your fellow believers and have church. The reason I say it's important to find a church is to find because you have to have a foundation for your beliefs for to be able to get your roots grown in. Because if you can't back up what you believe, then you don't have nothing, in my opinion. And I'm going to play devil's advocate a little bit, and I'm going to say that I don't agree with like anyone in the church can offer you advice. And the reason I say that is because you have a lot of people that just play church, that they just
You do.
go, and even if they've been going for 50 years and saying, yeah, I'm saved, I'm a Christian, but they're not living it. And when I say living it, I mean as in, um, they're just going through the motions. And when
You're
So,
you
right.
and when you have somebody trying to offer you help like that, that's just going through the motions. I don't feel like it's doing any edifying. And the reason
so
I'll let you go ahead real quick.
the reason that I find it important to have a home church that you can go to is because, like you had mentioned, the teaching and preaching specifically, the difference to me for those is, the Bible talks about you start on the milk.
Right,
That's what preaching is. It's the quick little bits that edify you. But once you get into the teaching and you start learning it better, you get onto the meat.
right,
You start getting more out of it. You start growing more. You start getting deeper.
yeah.
It also tells you that you'll know them by the fruits they bear. That's how you start to learn, okay, well, this one has been going to church for 40 years, but nothing about them says I'm a Christian. The way they live, the way they treat others, it all says I'm playing Christian. That's how you start to learn the difference. Once you start growing and you learn the way a Christian is supposed to be with others, when you're starting to actually be Christ-like and behave Christ-like, you start to recognize, okay, this person's in it for the right reason. This one's just putting on a show. This one's on the fence. And that's how you start to grow and get deeper and be able to know who you can trust and who you can't when it comes to advice for things.
And
Well,
I heard a preacher a few days ago, and this, I think this kind of goes hand in hand, kind of where I was getting at on like being able to go to anybody and talk to them and stuff, and it might help you a little bit. Like if you just feel like church is boring in general, um, they were talking. You have people that say, I've been in this for 15 years, and then he said, but yet you're still praying for the nice car. You got somebody that's been with God for 25 years, but they're still praying for a condo and a boat. And you want to know what's sad is that you've been in this for 15 years and you're not praying for the souls. You've been in with God for 25 years and you're not praying for churches to grow and be planted and stuff. And you want to know why everything's boring. It's because your prayer life and your faith is boring. You're not deep enough to be, you're not praying for the right things. We get so easily caught up in greedy and only wanting to pray when we want stuff, that we forget what the true reason and purpose is, and that's for the lost souls to be saved.
I think it was Taco who said you'll know them by their fruits.
Yep.
Uh, when you first become a Christian, like when you have first decided that you're going to give your life over, your heart immediately starts to change. Okay, it takes a while for your heart to be transformed to where it needs to be, but the change starts happening. Okay, and you'll say to yourself, before you would have told a white lie and you wouldn't have thought a whole lot about it. And hey, brother, we're gonna get to you. I promise. But you're gonna. Where was I? Where was I at? Okay, I have a short attention span and I need help.
You were talking about how when you first get saved,
Okay, yeah,
there's an
yeah.
immediate change in your heart.
There is. Before you would tell a white lie and you wouldn't think anything about it, but when you become a Christian, you think I shouldn't have done that. And it's immediate. You start to focus on those things that you didn't focus on before, as far as your actions and how you speak and how you do things. And when Taco said you'll know them by their fruits, when I say that people in the church have something to offer in their walk with Christ for you, if you come across a member of your church who, he comes every Sunday, he always always tithes, and he's always there to help out, but you notice that you see him walking out of the liquor store an awful lot, or maybe you you notice maybe he lives just down the road from you, and there's another woman there every other night. That's what he's meaning by know them by their fruits, and that's not somebody that you would typically want to take any type of advice from.
And
But
it's not even blatant things sometimes
yeah,
too. It can be how they treat
small things.
waiters and waitresses when they go out to eat. Because you wouldn't believe the number of servers who
Can we get
complain
that bread
about
now?
so-called Christians.
Thinking it, you said it. Daggum.
But you wouldn't believe the number of them who complain about Sunday crowds, the so-called Christians coming in and being rude and refusing to
Right.
tip and things like that. And that is not being Christ-like. Christ-like would mean you're as kind as can be. You understand if they're overwhelmed. You are willing to overlook little mistakes, and you are generous toward them.
And
You're
don't get
you're
me
not
wrong.
stingy.
I mean, I'm guilty of being rude and everything. I mean, there's no one that's perfect. There was one perfect man, and he died on the cross, and there's not going to be another one come. But I look at things a little different than kind of how, like, I don't think it's so much that it takes time for your heart to change. Like the whole New Testament to me, it's after your heart. Because everybody always, I mean, there's people that come to church that, for example, this one comes to church and you know that they're smoking pot and stuff. So then we immediately don't want them to come. My thing is, I don't care. You let them come, and then let them go smoke pot, and let God start working on them. Because once you give your life to God to become a born again Christian, your behavior follows, and that's how the change comes. I don't think it's all necessarily as in. I think once you give your heart to God, you're wiped clean. I mean, He saves you, and you're wiped clean, and only He knows your heart. And then your behavior is what will start to change after. And it's not always quick and easy. I mean, your behavior is what takes time to change. You'll start watching what you say and what comes out of your mouth, and how you act, and kind of like how Schizo was talking with white lies and things like that. You'll it becomes like second nature. You'll start to feel guilty over it.
If when I was talking about going back to what gosh, I'm just blabbered today.
You
But
blabbered.
when McMedic said that he doesn't think that other people have, and I'm sorry if I'm paraphrasing, so bear with me. When he said he doesn't necessarily thinks that other people have something to offer you, what I mean is I've been a Christian what now going on a year, I think. And if you were just becoming a Christian and you came up to me and you said, I want to talk to God every night. I want to talk to him before I eat. I want to talk to him when I wake up, but I don't know how to talk to him. I would look at you and I'd say, dude, talk to him like you're talking to him on the phone.
Right.
And McMedic can attest that's how I pray. I talk to God like I'm sitting on a cell phone with him. That's the kind of things that people can offer you. They can give you some insight of how they do things, and you should always check it against scripture. It also goes back to the way I pray being a relationship. I I go to bed, I wake up and I dial the number. Hey
Right.
God, it's me. you know he wants to talk to you, and it's that's the type of stuff that I mean as far as things that people can offer you.
And I think one
Because it
thing
is
that people get hung up on is they think like a Christian walk isn't easy. I mean, he says that you're still gonna have troubles and trials and things, and don't get me wrong, I've went to the altar and got saved 4 times now throughout my whole life when I was younger up until now, and knowing that he's there to forgive the backslider is that's the whole point of the cross. I mean, he knows that you're gonna screw up and that you're gonna mess up and be a mess, but that's the whole point of the cross is that he's there to forgive you. I've always
It's
had issues with social anxiety and want to connect to a church, but man, it's tough. Ooh, that'd be a good transition thing once we get through this.
We'll
well,
we'll
hold on. We
tackle that one, Sleepy Ninja. We've got to finish this
Um,
question out
yeah.
for
before we
Super
let
Mario Cousin.
Napkins give some input or uh, go into the next part of this, we do need to give a huge shout out to Angry Vet Nation. Are we gonna do our commercial?
yeah.
We done an awesome commercial last time. I'm just saying.
Let's see.
I didn't know we had commercials.
Oh yeah, we do.
Angry Vet Nation is a organization helping first responders and veterans alike that want to break into the world of gaming,
Or
whether
streaming
it's
in general.
or streaming in general. Whether it's providing a professional gaming rig, professional streaming gear, or just mentoring, they ensure that the everyday heroes have everything they need to succeed.
They're
So
always there for you. They've got your six.
if you are a veteran or first responder only,
You must be
visit
one of those.
visit angryvetnation.org and hit the apply now button.
I'm not gonna lie. I thought a commercial was gonna play across the screen. That's why I laughed. I didn't expect napkins. To be
For
like,
any
Angry
new
Vet
listeners,
Nation.
there is a backlog on that, right? Down to 3 months
Like,
on the backlog on that. So
They've cut it in half.
if you are interested, you make sure that you get that application in because I'm not gonna lie to you, and I'm not saying it just because they're sponsoring this podcast. You won't find a better bunch of people. They are absolutely
Alright.
They've
amazing.
been great.
now, let's go on to the second part of this question. So the second part of this question says, this all came up only because I started seeing a girl who isn't technically a Christian. It's not that she isn't either, she's just never really been around church. My family says I should break it off before it gets serious because God wouldn't like it because she's not a hardcore Christian.
So I can probably figure out exactly why they feel that way. And it comes down to the verse about being unequally yoked. A lot of Christians in general throughout the world all view that immediately as, okay, well, if you're a Christian, you can't be with a non-Christian because you're going to fail in your walk if you do that. Uh, from the sounds of things, to me, it sounds like you're not fully sewed out yourself yet. So I wouldn't be too concerned about that. But I do think you might want to take a step back just to examine what it is exactly that you are wanting. Are you wanting to give yourself fully to the relationship with Jesus, or are you still on the fence about it? Do you not feel like it's exactly what you're after right now? Because you can't really do both. You have to choose one or the other.
So I'm gonna
So I'm
say
gonna.
I have like. So I'm just gonna go ahead and let you know. Like whenever I met my wife, she was not a Christian, and it wasn't because she didn't believe in God. It was just she was never around church. She'd never heard the stories of Noah's Ark and Adam and Eve and all this. And I was going to church. Um, with that being said, just because she's not a Christian, I don't think that means you can't have a relationship with her. You might be the one light that she needs to see, because we never know whose lives we touch in our Christian walk anyway. Um, with that being said, if you want to have a relationship with her, I'm just gonna be blatantly honest with you. It shouldn't matter what your mom or dad says, because that's your life. Um, having a relationship with her, though, I will say you don't need to be just jumping in and having sex with her and not married and things like that. I think having a relationship with her, and just because she's not a Christian, should not affect that at all. Even though I know the verse of unequally yoked and things like that, but at the same time, my wife would have never went to church if I hadn't been in church and met her. I
Oh
think
yeah,
God works in
So
mysterious ways and we don't understand it. But as far as being in a relationship with somebody who's quote not a Christian, just because your mom and dad aren't happy about it, they can worry about their own walks. You worry about your walk. And if your mom and dad can't understand that, then maybe they need to do a deeper look at themselves, because that goes back to the easily thing of trying to control and say, well, you have to do things this way because God won't like it this way. Well, at the same time, your parents aren't God either.
yeah. So
So
I want to jump in here. Sorry, Schizo, to jump you out,
no, you're
to
good.
jump in front of you, but this kind of goes back to what I said earlier, just like Medic just now mentioned. You have to walk your own personal walk with God. Your soul salvation is your own personal walk with God. If you pray to God and you feel like that you're not going against God's will, and just like they just mentioned, this might be her way of getting into church. You might be her light. Just because she's not in church right now doesn't mean she won't go to church. Ask her. Ask her if she'd want to go to church with you. Ask her if she believes in God, or if she knows who God is, or if she wants to talk about it. And if you feel like, honestly, and you're praying and it's not pulling you away from your faith, then why not?
Right.
If it gets to the point that it starts pulling you away from your faith, however, or if you feel like that you're getting warning signs from God saying, that it's not meant, then maybe
Step back
maybe
from
at
it.
that point you need to step back. But me personally, I'm a firm believer in you live your own life, man. As far as what everybody else thinks, let them think it. As
Don't get
long
me
as
wrong,
you
man. I love my mama. I'm a big mama's boy. I am.
100%.
But at the same time, my mom might give me advice on what she thinks that I should do on something. That doesn't mean I'm gonna go do it. Well,
So
yeah, I was gonna say, go ahead, Schizo. I know you got cut off there.
first off, what Taco and McMedic said about being unequally yoked, that I've got my Bible out in front of me right now, and that particular verse is 2 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 14. It says, "Do not be unequally yoked together with unbelievers, for what fellowship has righteousness with lawlessness?" Okay. And what communion has light with darkness? And when it says light and darkness, it doesn't mean necessarily good and evil. It means somebody who has seen the light versus somebody who has not. Could also mean good and evil, but um, another way I think about it is, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie God's Not Dead. It's one of my favorite movies, hands down.
I've still not watched it.
But in that movie, the student that is debating the teacher, he goes up and he's talking to a pastor. I think that's how it goes. And he says to the student, the pastor does, he says, "You may be the only meaningful exposure some of these people ever have to the gospel."
Right.
Okay. Um, don't let a relationship affect your walk, like they've all said. And going on that, I want to tell you a story. Okay. Uh, McMedic, you already know the story because you lived it and you watched it. And when I say you lived it, I mean you lived it through me because you were watching me go through it.
Okay.
So there was a woman that I used to work with.
Oh, this story.
Yes, this story. I'm gonna tell the story.
Before he starts this
I
story, I want you to know, always listen to your friends.
Well, this girl, I won't mention her name, but
That would be wise.
listen, I fell head over heels with this woman. Okay. And she knew it.
Yes, she did.
And she took very, very heavily advantage of it.
Yes, she did.
She knew that if she told me to jump, I was going to ask how high. And it was after I became a Christian and some other things went down. She started actually dating this other guy that we worked with. I won't mention his name either.
That would be wise.
But I was going to bed one night and I asked God, I said, and this is something maybe you want to talk to him about. If she is affecting my relationship with you, remove her from my life. Those were my words. The next week she had quit. Now here's where it gets stupid on my part. Okay.
That's like how you put it.
She
I'm
had been
sorry.
gone, I don't know, what was it, maybe a month and a half, maybe.
Something like that.
I had talked to God again. And this is how bad this woman had me wrapped around her finger. Okay. I said, I would rather have her in my life and be in pain than not have her in my life at all. And when I tell you God will give you things that you want, he will. Okay, he's not a genie, but he will give you things that you want. Sometimes it's because he's a good God and he wants you to be happy. And sometimes he gives you things you want so he can teach you a lesson. And a week later, she was back at work. She was back at work. So I talked, I realized that things were not going to go the way I wanted to them. No matter how bad I wanted them, it was not going to go that way. I talked to God again. There's a pattern here. And I said, you know what? I said, I see what's going on and I'm done with it. The next week she had quit again and I have not seen or spoken to her since.
And when I
Don't let a
say listen
relationship
to your friends, I want you to know during this, what would you say, like
year
3,
period.
yeah, something like that. This whole time from the beginning, I could see what was happening. And I would say, Dylan, don't do it. Just don't. Just
This
just
may be
quit.
hard to believe, but I'm hard headed.
It's not what you think, and she's just playing on your emotions. And I could see what it was doing to you mentally too. And that was one thing, like it somebody that I view as straight up my brother. Don't have to be blood, but he's my brother. And I could see the mental effect that that relationship was taking and how much advantage she was taking. And I was like, dude, stop. Just let it go. Just don't have anything to do with her. And he will not listen. So he had to learn. So schizo stupid. Yes, schizo stupid. You got that right.
And when I tell you that Schizo learned the hard way, Schizo learned. I mean,
To be fair, you asked for it,
I did, I did. I
but
was,
that is a good example. Don't let a relationship affect your walk. That's pretty good.
I was so deep into depression at the time that it was. I mean, I knew where I was with the depression, but I was so terrified that I was not going to be able to sustain myself in this depression, and that I was going to, you know,
Commit suicide.
opt out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was one of the things that really woke me up because I often had uh, a problem with putting things before God, and God often used those things to,
Break you down.
yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I think He knew that he uh he had to take her away from me, and that she was bad for me, but I think He also had it in his plan that this is how I'm going to reach him, because I'm going to have to break him first. And believe me, I
I
was
mean,
I
and
was
he
a
will
broken
break you.
man.
He will break. I mean, he will break you. I mean, one thing I heard too that I thought was really good. They were talking about like why churches don't grow and why they fall apart and stuff. I heard this person say it's because you have Christians acting like adults, and I was like, what? But then he went on to talk about how he wants us to be childlike. You can be an adult chronologically, but he wants you to be childlike in humility. And the problem is because adults, they don't want to be told they're wrong. They don't want to repent. Adults want to be set in their ways, and adults don't want to be coached or taught anything. And I was like, that's a lot of truth right there.
Well, Christ himself said, "Except you come to me as one of these children, I tell you now, you will not enter into the kingdom of heaven." And
True.
a lot of people immediately read that and they're like, oh, well, they mean being born again.
Right.
Now, he was meaning specifically, unless you come to Christ with the mindset of, I know I've messed up, I know I've failed, teach me how to do better, teach me how to do what you want me to
And that
do.
person I heard say that, they said, and a lot of people are very hard headed and stubborn, and they don't want to be dealt with. So, and he said, when I pray and I'm praying for those people, I say, God, you deal with them aggressively, and you break them any way that you have to. And I'm like, that makes a lot of sense on why he has to. He does break people.
Yeah, that goes back to the when you were a kid and you would
Jump
jump
off
off
the
that tailgate
yeah.
because your dad was there to catch you. That is childlike faith.
Um, Taco and napkins.
Uh, I don't know. I feel like we've kind of covered this pretty well. It's more about you need to examine if this relationship is affecting your relationship with God. If you truly believe that you're sold out to be a Christian, is this relationship hindering that, or is it non effective toward it? Because if it's not effective toward it, it's like Napkins and them said, continue to date this girl, continue to see her, just don't do sinful acts with her. Otherwise, then you've immediately got your answer.
I wanna jump on that real quick. When they're talking about sinful acts, uh, you're a Christian man. Set some boundaries, okay, in your relationship with this girl, okay, because it is so easy for a young man to fall into that trap and never get out of it. Okay, if if you go visit her, if y'all go out on a date or whatever, you know, uh, cut off the date at 8 p.m. You know,
I'm just
I'm
gonna
serious.
say the best advice that I ever had gave to me especially when I was younger, when it came to relationships, because we're human, and I mean, there's urges and things, but the best advice I ever got was don't put yourself in the situations to be tempted.
Exactly, and that's what I'm saying when I say cut off at, like, you guys go out on a date, at 8 p.m. Say, hey, well, it's time for me to go. I'll see you tomorrow, or we'll meet up here in a day or so and do something else. Don't stay the night with her and stuff like that. Which
Now walk her to
you
her door and you head home.
Be a
you you
gentleman
are you are a you are a grown man and you have free
who
will, and
can't
I
stay
cannot tell
out
you
past 8.
what to do. Well, I'm just using 8 as an example.
I'm just
Okay,
giving you a hard time.
but set those boundaries. That temptation, it gives that temptation as little leeway as possible. Okay, like, as a Christian, like McMedic said, like Taco said, like Napkins said, that should be your your main concern. Okay. And if
Napkins.
being in those positions puts you in that temptation, then do your utmost best to remove that situation for temptation.
I think it comes down to. I mean, you have to have some wisdom
Self
about it.
control. I mean,
Be smart.
Yeah.
I pretty much said everything I think that I can't really think anything else to say on the matter. Like I said, you walk your own walk, your own salvation.
Hmm.
Now, as far as people giving you advice, that's fine, but at the same time, don't let people rule your life
Right. Well, I get
unless
it.
it's
I mean,
God, unless it's the big man.
I get it. But I mean, there's some common sense that comes in with it. Use common sense.
I think your wife summed it up best for how to avoid temptation. Think with your mind.
Yeah. There is somebody that actually is a listener and is currently messaging me wanting to put some input on the entire question in general. I told him to feel free to send me a response and I'll read it, but we'll probably be moving on to the next one.
Yeah, we can go ahead and get started on Sleepy Ninja.
Sleeping
I've always had
Ninja!
issues with social anxiety. I want to connect and go to church, but man, it's tough.
Bruh,
I
I
want to be
hate people.
ninja.
Well, I can address that somewhat because as the three of them on this podcast with me can tell you, I am definitely somewhere on the autism spectrum.
You're
uh,
very welcome.
Word.
We need to clip that because he finally admitted it.
I've said it multiple times. I don't do great with social situations. I'm very awkward. I kind of get where you're coming from there. And if you're going to church and you're feeling uncomfortable, I can understand that. At the same time, you need to focus more on what's actually being said in these services and less about the other people around. If you can focus on what's being preached or taught, then you can kind of zone out and ignore anyone else around you. It'll take you a while before you're comfortable, like if they go around shaking hands or hugging or something. I completely get that. There's still people that we go to church with to this day that I've known for years that I still have a little bit of an uncomfortable feeling around and have trouble shaking their hand or whatever.
Bro, I've been told before that I just have that look about me. You just don't look approachable.
I want you to know that everybody on this podcast is a first responder and we all have social anxiety.
Right.
Okay.
And to throw this
I
out there, I mean, like, my thing, and it might be because it's the church I was raised in, and I've went to several different churches, but it's finding that one that kind of just feels like home. Um, Social anxiety in general, you can ask my wife. I hate leaving the house. I hate going to Walmart. I hate going to the dollar store, and they're everywhere. I don't like being around people. But when I go to church, I leave all of that at the door, and I try and go in to just focus on God. I'm there to try and worship and hear what He's saying in the message to us and stuff. Um, and our church isn't some tiny little place as in the country, as Schizo said. I mean, it's a fairly good sized building and whatnot, but like big churches and with tons of people and packed and crowded and whatnot, and churches that are all about um, like there's a lot of churches that are all about money and bragging and flaunting and things, and I cannot feel comfortable in places. Churches that are packed where you were squeezed in beside somebody, I can't do it.
That's
And
my church, bro.
is what it is, homie. I can't do the like even like shopping and it's packed stores. I can't handle it. I the anxiety, the social anxiety, I know what you're talking about. My biggest advice is one, pray about it. If you like the church that you go to, pray about it, leave it at the door, and go in focusing on God. If you have to, sit there with the eyes closed, just praying and worshiping. Um, if if you just don't think you can do that at your church, find somewhere that feels like home. That's me. I hate being in front of people. I'm very awkward and quiet until I get to know you, and then I don't shut up. That's true. The way I dealt with this, I put my
He's
focus
a
totally on God when I walked into the church. I've started talking to people more that I have been there and getting to know people, but it's totally out of my comfort zone to go sit in church. And that is from
uh,
my wife.
as first responders and people who deal with the public a lot. Like I get my fill of. Actually, me and Napkins, I think, talked about this at work. I get my fill of human interaction so much at work
Right.
that when I go home, I do not want to deal with people. Okay, so I get that. Okay, McMedic, I'm with you. I hate Walmart. Okay,
I'm
Walmart
telling you, man.
is the bane of my
Move
existence.
your buggy.
Okay, I hate Walmart with a passion. Okay, but when I go to church, I'm there for fellowship, and our small groups that we have, my men's group on Sunday morning. Man, I look forward to that more than anything because I love those guys. Those are some genuinely good fellas that I know, and I enjoy spending time with them. You know, and you'll find those people in your church. You'll find people in your church that you love to be around.
And I will say,
They're
like, I mean, kind of like when it comes to it, you have to put effort on your side too. I mean, you have to step
yeah.
out of your comfort zone and try and make an effort.
It's weird, man. And like on when I found my church, I was actually headed to a different church. I was headed, I was non-denominational for a long time. Okay. And there's a non-denominational church just down the road from my current home church. And I was actually headed there one morning. And I have this habit of, for certain things, I like to be there very early, but I didn't want to be there too early that morning. Church started at 11 and it was like 10 a.m. and I was riding around and uh I drove past the church that I currently go to and I saw everybody walking in and something said, go here instead. Go here instead. So I pulled into the parking lot and I have been there ever since. And like I said about McMedic and their church, it's a relatively small church. You know, it's not nearly the size of mine, and I'm not bragging in any way. Okay, it's just
Sounded
there's
kind
a
of braggy to me.
there's a lot of people that go to my church. Okay, it is the primary Baptist church in my area, and I'll tell you, dude, I don't know a whole lot of people, but I know a few of them, and they have made me feel very, 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 very welcome. And when you go to church, when you finally find one to connect and go, it's going to be tough, but there will be people who come up to you and say, "Hey, welcome to, you know, so and so church.
I think one
I'm
thing that
yada
makes
yada."
it so hard, especially with social anxiety, is because when you go in churches that are very welcoming, and most church, like our churches, they'll come around and hug and shake hands and everything before the service and whatnot, and it's people being trying to be nice and everything, and it kind of makes it feel awkward to a point of like, what the crap is going on?
It can feel forced,
Yeah.
you know.
So, one thing that I have to say I'm thankful for about my time, especially when I went to Alice Lloyd, is even though we were raised in a Pentecostal church, I joined their Baptist Collegiate Ministry there, and they did a lot of different things with different denominations from all around the state. And one of the years I went there, I actually took part in, they called it kind of a mission trip thing, but groups from all the colleges across the state who had BCM groups sent small groups out to do what they were calling mission work, which was essentially going to help either small churches with outreach or help charity programs throughout the state. And I have been in churches that could hold 2,000 people, and I've been in churches that couldn't hold 20 people.
Right.
I've seen all different sides of people from uh, the ones that the stereotype, anyhow, is like the old regulars who always look so stern. I've seen people like that, and once you actually talk to them for a minute, you realize, oh, they're actually very friendly. And I've seen people who, the second you meet them, they're smiling ear to ear, they're as nice as can be, but the second you get to talking to them, you realize they're one of the most hateful people in the world. So I completely understand the social anxiety aspect of you're afraid to get to know people or be around people and stuff like that. But it also opened my eyes to a whole lot more of we don't understand exactly what other people are or who they are until we're willing to get to know them a little bit, until we're willing to put forth effort, even if it makes us uncomfortable. Moses was uncomfortable public speaking. It says he had a stutter, and
Yeah.
he even tried to tell God, I can't be your spokesman. I can't be your prophet because I can't speak to people. And God's response was, all right,
Sure
I'll
you
give you
can. You
your
got
brother.
Aaron. My wife says when you walk into your first day at a new job, it's uncomfortable. It takes time to get to know people or to get used to the environment or even a new relationship. It's awkward at first getting to know people. It's similar to the first few services in church. It takes time to adapt to new situations in all things in life. If you feel a pulling to go to church, just take the leap as if it's a new job or relationship.
Well said.
I
I would make
know. How did she do that?
I would make you feel awkward, 100%. I'd walk up and be like, "Want to see our baptistry?"
The
Uh,
only thing I think I'm going to say on this one is if it feels that foreign to you, especially if you've been going a couple, 3 or 4 services, then maybe you should start visiting other places and see if you can find somewhere that feels more homey.
You'll
Yeah,
know. You'll know.
as we mentioned earlier, there are a ridiculous number of denominations out there. Not every denomination is for everybody.
right.
We have no kinds of prejudices against denominations whatsoever. We're open to anyone as long as they're not trying to teach you something that goes completely against the Bible.
Right. I agree with that. Um, so I have
Avoid the turtle cult.
the response for the previous question whenever you would like for me to read it.
Well,
But
let me just throw this out. Schizo yelled that avoid the turtle coat, and the coffee cup I was drinking from has a turtle on it. So I
See,
feel like I was called out.
don't trust anything Taco says. He's part of the turtle cult.
So this person, oh, there's words in here I probably can't pronounce, but I'm gonna go for it. This is towards the previous question. I think it was
From
Gage's
Super
question.
Mario Cousin.
Yeah. So the Hebrew word for faith is imuna, signifies not just believing something, but also a deep trust and reliance on something. The thing I love about the Hebrew word for faith is it is actually considered an action word or a verb. When it is used, it implies that you are taking action for that belief and trust and not just passively believing. James said in 2:16 that if faith has no work, it is dead being alone. True faith motivates a believer to put it into action or to live it out. Being the hands and feet of Jesus and not just being his billboard, James will go on to say that if you show me your faith without works, I'll show you my faith by works. This means that true faith is demonstrated by action. After all, Jesus did say they, I don't think that's supposed to be they, did say they will, oh yeah, it is. They will know you are my disciples by your love. And why
Yeah, it is.
why would he say that? Because when you love, you true love cannot be done in only words, but in action. The Pharisees thought they had faith, but in reality they only had religion. They had the word of the law and rituals, but honestly most of them were corrupt according to the law because they didn't live out what they even proclaimed. That's why they didn't recognize Jesus as the Messiah, because they didn't even realize the over 300 prophecies that he fulfilled. Religion is built more on ritualistic, legalistic ideas, which isn't always a bad thing, but it's when you attempt to take that and replace your faith with it instead of accompanying your faith. As far as going to church, I love the assembly of the body. Corporate worship was the design for the early church, as they even gathered house to house to break bread and pray for one another, and even hear the word expounded. Paul said in Hebrews 10:25, "For us not forsaking the assembly together," or in the Greek it literally means "do not forsake our congregational meetings," as soon as they made a practice, but rather gather and encourage one another, and even more so we seek the day approaching. What day? The day of the Lord, or return of the Lord, which is would love to expound on, but I've typed a book, sorry. So in a nutshell, I say religion is meant to supplement your faith and not replace it. Faith requires intimacy with the high power you believe in, but I believe unless it's intimacy with Christ, you're wasting time. I think he mic
Well
dropped.
said.
My brain hurts.
Mic drop. That was pretty deep. A lot of words I can't pronounce.
Yeah, bro, you're banned. You can't come back. No, I'm just kidding. You made us all look bad. No.
Amy's got me. Mic drop. I'm gonna have to get some emotes going in there. Mic drop. Napkins.
Yes, sir.
Anything you would like to say? Feel like you've been quiet for the last 30 minutes.
I can't really think of anything, but I do have an idea.
Uh-oh.
Y'all tell me what you think of it. But I think on this podcast episode, I have an option on Spotify that I can attach a poll to the podcast that people have to answer.
Sleepy
I'm thinking
Ninja
about-
says, thanks for the advice, y'all. I definitely want to check out some new churches. I moved a couple years ago and haven't found/been invited to any churches around my area.
You can come to mine.
Hey, we're always here to talk. Always. But yeah, if
Sir,
there's nothing wrong with jumping around and finding one you like.
I think that I might want to attach a poll just to see what the listeners believe. Circling back, do you believe? I think the way it would be worded is, do you believe that a Christian and non-Christian could be in a relationship?
I'm okay with it.
That's the one thing that's been on my mind this whole episode. Anywho, anybody else have any questions, comments, piercing critical insights they want to discuss before we wrap up?
I want to know if Schizo has anything he wants to discuss. Because this is the first episode Schizo's made it to, so everybody needs to give him a nice hand clap for not going to sleep this morning, even though I was the slacker. Yay! I've enjoyed Schizo
You
being on
guys-
here.
See that chicken?
That would
Schizo,
be a
before
good poll. I'm in the exact situation, Sleepy Ninja says. Do what?
we can, I think we do the poll and then discuss it a little further, maybe on next episode, depending on what the majority is. Speaking of which, I'm going to plug this right here. If anybody wants to discuss it any further, or has any questions, comments, piercing critical insights, or anything that they
hate.
want mentioned, or hate, anything that they want mentioned on the show whatsoever, you can send an email at btq@slimchancegaming.com, or you may also visit our wonderful sponsor, angryvetnation.org, and click BT. and click on Be on the Quest, at which point you'll be given a contact form that you can submit anonymously if you want to be an anonymous keyboard warrior and try and hurt our feelings, but we have tough skin.
Right.
But we first responders. You can't hurt us. Okay.
You can fill out the contact form there. That comes directly to our email, and we'll discuss it on next week's episode. Huge shout out once again to our sponsor, Angry Vet Nation. They for any first responders or veterans, they
You have
help
to
them out.
be a first responder or veteran. Can't believe we have to say that, but we do, because some people just don't listen.
You can't
They-
be an accountant. Okay.
They help veterans and first responders break into the world of streaming, whether it's with a professional gaming rig, streaming gear, or mentoring. They provide everyday heroes with everything they need to succeed. Here, streaming isn't just a hobby. It's a way to heal, connect, and inspire. So visit angryvetnation.org, click the Apply Now button, and get in the queue to possibly get funded. As of right now, the backlog is 3 months, but they are working on it tirelessly
They
every
have
day.
done an amazing job working on that. That was backed
last
up
I
to
heard,
what, 6
it
months?
had got. Last I heard, it had got up to 8 months, and they knocked it down to 3 in a matter of about a week.
Daggone.
If you ain't with the wee woos or the pew pews, okay.
The wee woos and the pew pews. Oh, that's pretty good. I like that.
Oh, it was up to 8.5 months.
Well, either Chad was slacking or Chad's done some amazing work. I don't know, but I'm proud of you, Chad.
Internet meme Chad.
Another emote for the channel. Chad! Most was
Wee woos or
disqualifications.
pew pews.
If we're being honest. Yeah, a lot of people don't listen to the rules. I will say, because we were talking about the sponsorship and Schizo being here, I was curious for Schizo's input. Like, we've mentioned on several episodes, like, being able to do this podcast. Like, we've had episodes where we just get on here and we're all over the place, from talking about gaming stuff and everything. And then we've had episodes, Napkins had something on his heart, and that's what we mainly discussed the entire episode. I've said that this podcast is literally one of the highlights of my week, because anything and everything, and even if it's just something that one of us are dealing with and wanting to talk about, of getting on here and being able to discuss it and get it off our chest, like, this podcast has been a true blessing for me. I just wanted to know, from this being your first episode, Schizo, do you feel like we're doing good? Don't encourage Chad.
It's been horrible.
We have to keep him knocked down a few pegs, guys. Come on. Oh, we have an
Sorry,
update, they say. Ooh, update? Bum, 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 bum. While we're waiting on the update, I didn't mean to cut you off, Schizo.
What?
I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh.
The other podcast canceled their Friday showing, deleted all episodes, and shut everything down. It was all a fight over money and power. Greed is the downfall, I tell you.
Are they Sith Lords?
We are still discussing and trying to look at schedules and stuff about maybe picking up a second day during the week to do another episode of the podcast, and maybe in the evenings if we need to, because I'm dying to get Callistus on here, guys.
If nothing else, maybe Schizo and I will look into doing like an evening podcast of discussing Star Wars.
Hey,
We could possibly do
anything
like
and
an
everything,
even,
man.
like
Don't
me and
tempt me.
Schizo was talking about this morning. Well, Schizo was talking about. I was telling him how stupid it was. We could look at the possibility of maybe doing a live recording on Thursday evenings and then releasing it Friday mornings. That might be something we could work out.
Doing what now?
Recording, like doing a live recording like we do here on Twitch on an evening sometime, and then picking the day of the week that we want it to release and releasing it that morning.
To like the podcast platforms and whatnot.
Yeah.
I'm down for that. I'm
I
always,
don't know. It's something we would have to talk about and work out all the fine details.
Yeah. The schedule problems. What's the big hinder? Trying to figure
I know
it
we
out.
have this podcast now. Doing a podcast is something that I thought of a lot of, but
I'm sorry.
I
Your
didn't-
words to me was podcast really aren't my thing.
they aren't, because I as far as listening to podcasts, it's not something that I do.
Yeah, me
Like
neither. But I'm here.
there's maybe a podcast that I listen to every 6 to 8 months, but the podcast that I was thinking that I would really love was just a storytelling podcast, from first responders and veterans.
You mean like just telling like past EMS stories and stuff?
Yeah, and not the just the horror related stuff.
We're traitors because we don't listen to
I'm-
podcasts. No.
I'm talking like the not only the worst stories we had, but the funniest
Right.
or
Well-
the weirdest.
I mean, to be fair, the last 2 episodes would have been really awesome for that. Because
But
I
it
was-
wouldn't
I
it wouldn't
was
just be us.
going for
We'd
it.
have other people that wanted to get on and share their story with us.
Right. I've
you
got I've talked to some of our coworkers that you all know. They want to come on the show and give some stories and stuff.
We can. I mean, it can be just a different section, segment of this podcast. I was thinking like faith and first responders.
Okay.
I don't know, bro. I'm tired.
Yeah, we can. That's fine. We can definitely add more of that into it. Like Medic said earlier, we were kind of all over the place anyway, so
Anything.
there's
and
not an
everything,
issue
man.
with
And
us
one-
having people on who talk
Not
about
to-
stories and stuff.
Not to interrupt and just shut you guys down, but
Daggone.
this might be something that we talk about off air. We're creeping up on 2 hours of
Yeah,
rambling
we're
about
at an
show
hour and
ideas.
57
Put up a
minutes.
poll.
There's
Put up-
nothing wrong with
Yeah,
that. Our
2
viewers
polls.
clearly enjoy it.
Put up a poll. Do y'all want to hear first? Would y'all like another, like a separate segment of Beyond the Quest where it's just first responders and veterans telling their stories?
Or special episodes. Another idea that I would really like, because I know we have to wait on some legal things to get through for the Napkins story. That's going to be a big premiere, I know. We have invested people.
Yeah, we're gonna be on WSAZ.
Another thing I thought about doing, especially kind of how you're mentioning, they're saying yes, by the way. I thought about doing, if anybody was interested, doing like an episode of, if you wanted the schizo, if you wanted to get on and do, your testimony, your story from everything, you know what I mean? Like I've really thought about doing an episode of just, this is my testimony. This is everything that I've been through. So people know kind of where we're coming from. Like, we're not just on here spreading hate because we can't stand people. I'm just on here giving my opinions and whatnot. And
I can't tell people how much we don't hate them. Like,
Oh,
yeah,
we love
y'all-
everyone. We just don't like a lot of people.
Right.
I want y'all to know that if you're on here and you don't like what we're saying, that's fine.
come
I
tell
still
me.
love you.
Come tell
I
me.
still
though.
love you.
Even if it's
Like-
even if you want to get on there anonymous and be a keyboard warrior, come tell me. Anybody that is
Like,
interested in being on the show, though, we are totally open to it for anything.
We can use a voice changer if you want to stay completely anonymous.
True.
Make a
Yeah.
fake Discord. We'll put on a voice changer filter. It'll all be groovy.
Yeah.
You can also apply for that at angryvetnation.org. and click on the Be on the Quest link.
Or
Wait,
shoot
are we
an
talking about
email.
getting angry people on here?
Amen,
Sure.
brother.
Sure.
Yeah.
Don't care a
Yeah,
bit.
that'll end badly.
Don't
For
care
them.
a bit, man. Or shoot a email to BTQ.
BTQ at slimchancegaming.com.
Yeah, that. I believe that's going to wrap this one up, though, right?
I believe so.
Ratings would be through the roof, they say, if we get some angry people on here. See, I love the way they think. I'm down for it, man.
We keep inviting them, and they just keep dropping the anonymous hate toward us.
Hey, to be fair, if there was some angry person on here and they're not like debating and they're just screaming and fighting the whole time, I could just see Cisco being like, and then.
Who, me?
Yeah, you.
Yeah, you.
Who, me?
Couldn't be.
But I've enjoyed this episode. I will say it's got us. I think this is probably the first actual episode we've got to actually kind of dive into our faith side about it. And if anybody wants to know more about that stuff, the two ways to get a hold of us, as Napkins said, make sure you get on that. Make sure if you are a veteran or a first responder and you are interested in streaming or gaming in general and whatnot, you apply with Angry Vet Nation because they're thebomb.com. But I believe that's going to do it for this episode. So until next time, love y'all. Jesus loves you more. Wait, what?
I just wanted to throw this out there because Vet gave me permission. If you apply,
Caught me in time.
you have to be qualified, but if you apply, you're also helping out the show. We don't get much, but we do get a little bit of a bonus for each person that applies for listening through the show. So just, if nothing else, apply for us.
And I had no idea people
Remember.
were actually doing that until recently, so a big thank you.
And remember, okay, everybody who's watching, everything faith-based that we've talked about, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever would believe in him would not perish, but have everlasting life.
Till next time, love y'all. Jesus loves you more. Bye!
From
Bye.
the first light to
Bye.
the game's last stand, we're chasing truth with controller in hand. Faith adventure stories untold. First responder hearts brave and bold. Beyond the quest, where the journeys meet, from the fires of life to the gaming heat. Slim Chomp's crew, come join the ride with McMedic, Napkins, and Taco as your guide. Beyond the quest, where the journeys meet, from the fires of life to the gaming heat. Slim Chomp's crew, come join the ride with McMedic, Napkins, and Taco as your guide. Beyond the quest, where the stories grow, faith, fire, and games in the world we know. Adventure calls, the table is set. Let's take the leap, our best quest yet. From the first light to the game's last stand, we're chasing truth with controller in hand. Faith adventure stories untold. First responder hearts brave and bold. Beyond the quest, where the journeys meet, from the fires of life to the gaming heat. Slim Chomp's crew, come join the ride with McMedic, Napkins, and Taco as your guide. Beyond the quest, where the journeys meet, from the fires of life to the gaming heat. Slim Chomp's crew, come join the ride with McMedic, Napkins, and Taco as your guide. Beyond the quest, where the stories grow, faith, fire, and games in the world we know. Adventure calls, the table is set. Let's take the leap, our best quest yet. From the first light to the game's last stand, we're chasing truth with controller in hand. Faith adventure stories untold.